What is up, Watch fam? Happy Sunday and welcome to Ask Teenage Live. Happy Saturday to you guys on YouTube. I am Christian from Theo and Harris, and today we are doing an Instagram live feed. It's a ton of fun. If you do not follow us already on Instagram, you should go ahead and do so, because that is where all the watch fun happens, or so much of the watch fun happens. So let's do it. Coke GMT bezel or cocaine, Coke or Pepsi. I am a Pepsi fan. There is actually a lot of movement in the Pepsi market. I remember when I first got into watches, you could snag a 1675 for like, I don't know what, 5-6 grand. Now good ones are in the 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. It's crazy what's happened to those watches. I'm a big fan of GMTs. I think they really were underrated, and they have the legs to seriously be very valuable. And even the best GMTs, the best 1675s now, are still like, 40 to 60 grand. I mean, a lot of the best ones, which is a lot of money. But if you look at it comparable to Submariners, it's not. Submariners can trade in the hundreds all day, every day. So it's funny that the GMT is still somewhat underrated. So props to the GMT. I believe in you. Okay, so Milsub or the Patek 5970. First, we'll go into what is a Milsub and what is the Patek 5970. The Milsub is a Rolex Military Submariner. It was commissioned by the British. Wasn't the Royal Air Force? Of course, it was the British diving, whatever, British Ministry of Defense, MOD. Given to divers. The watches were standard Rolex Submariners, but they were made to military specifications. So they were broad arrow tritium hands. Why? For maximum legibility. Then you had a fully gradated bezel up to 60, graduated bezel. You had fixed spring bars, fixed spring bars, as opposed to poppy ones. Why? Because it was not about swapping straps or having a bracelet. It was about guaranteeing that this watch will never fall off of your wrist. And the only way that you could possibly do that is by literally not even making a spring bar. Spring bars can't break if there are no spring bars. So these are very, very interesting watches to history of Britain, to the history of Rolex, definitely, and as such they have gone up in value tremendously. I obviously was not around when these were trading for low amounts of money. When I got into watches, they were very expensive already, but I know that from other people that these guys were in the $10,000-$15,000 range not that long ago, and so many of them were bought on the real cheap because the people who had them, these old veterans, didn't even realize what the hell they were. So from the legend that I've heard, there were a lot of guys out there, that went around kind of buying these watches, kind of like, sharks, telling these veterans, hey, that worthless little old Rolex you have, I can give you $2 grand for it. Meanwhile, the watch is worth 40 or 50 or 60. It's good. It's good karma, preying on veterans. So anyway, there's that watch. Came in 3 references: 5513, 5517, 551317, double reference. They're very valuable. Then there's the Patek 5970. This is a total opposite watch. The Rolex is an ultimate epitome of a tool watch. The Patek is not. The Patek is functional. It is a perpetual calendar chronograph, but it is not. It is basically almost entirely unrelated. Apart from being a grail piece, it has nothing in common with the Rolex Military Submariners. But I've got to say, both watches are tremendous in their own right. I am not a fan of complicated watches. I am not a perpetual, I'm not a chronograph guy particularly, but that 5970 is a sick watch. It is a sick watch. One of my buddies bought one, and it was, I remember Anna and I around with it for an hour or 2 hours one day over lunch, over just coffee, and I was just like blown away by it. Those watches trade in the the $110,000 to $130,000 price range. It's a lot of money. It's hard to say they're undervalued, because that's a ton of money. But that's it. I think that if you're going to talk about if you're going to talk about undervalued perpetual calendar chronographs by Patek, you got to go to the 3970. It's kind of the, if there is such a thing, the ugly stepchild within the perpetual calendar chronograph range by Patek. 2499s are skyrocketed. 5004s are astronomically expensive. But these 3970s, you can actually snag them, I don't know, between 70 and 80 or 70 or 90,000. That's a lot of money, but for what it is, it might not be. So if I were to, invest in one, I would pick an odd dial configuration and put it in a safe and never touch it, because I genuinely think that they have value, so that's a good opinion. Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, Gashus. It's Habring. Habring is another wonderful brand. Habring is a brand I actually do know a little bit about. They basically, correct me if I'm wrong, will modify, standard kind of a Bosch's, but really cool modifications, right? The watch that got me into Habring was one of their jump, true seconds, or whatever the heck they might call it specifically. It's a complication that makes a mechanical watch look like a quartz watch, just tick, 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 tick. They have in-house movements now. Cool. So it's a cool complication. It's something that's totally unnecessary. It has no actual function, I don't think. Technically, it's less precise, right? Because you're not actually seeing the graduation of a second. You're just seeing, 1, 2, 3. Not that matters, but still, to me, that complication sends one message. I just want to appreciate mechanical watches. That's it. There's no function about it. It's just what I like. It's not, I use my chronograph to cook my steak. It's just, I think it's really cool that someone went out of their way to make this complication, and I'm going to buy it, which is fun. It's the same thing with finishing. Finishing has no function. Finishing has no complication. There's nothing to finishing, really, that you can use. But the fact that someone took the time to finish something like Lange, for example, or like FP Journe, that is really impressive. It's really impressive. By the way, I really took a closer look at the FP Journe Chronometra Blue like a couple weeks ago. Damn, that's a cool watch. Holy shit. I mean, seriously though, not only is it beautiful, not only is it made in tantalum, not only is it by a brand that, is truly, interesting and innovative, but the movement architecture, not the finishing, and not the material of it, I think it's rose gold, but the actual architecture of it is phenomenal. That to me went way under the radar. You look at the finishing, and it's easy to tell that this is, not only top notch, but, different stylistically than your typical, Geneva stripes or anything. But once you look at the separation and how the movement looks like it's in two parts, right? It's something I've never seen before. And maybe that was just because I'm stupid, but I'd never seen that kind of optical illusion or trick there. Very, very cool. Do you think vintage Tudor will increase in monetary value? Yes, I'm definitely I'm definitely all about Tudor. I think the vintage Tudor is phenomenal. I think that they represent a lot of value, and I think that they will continue to increase in value in the coming months, years. I don't think it's very far off, to be honest. One more last question. What did you study that has helped you in marketing yourself? Nothing. I'm not a student of marketing. I'm just a big Gary Vee fan. Just crush it. Jab, 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 right hook. I bought these books a while ago, and before I sign off, Gary Vaynerchuk's a super interesting guy. My office literally is modeled after his office. I grew up right next to the wine library, 10 minutes away. So I grew up kind of in the shadow of Gary Vaynerchuk and that empire, right? When I was a kid, he was still at wine library. So it was very, very relevant. So in that respect, I've known about Gary for a long, long time. But I tuned out and then tuned back in when he really went no hedge on YouTube with Ask Gary Vee and stuff like that. But he's, I shot him an email not too long ago, and this is kind of what I said. I said, your inspiration is cool. I'm all about it. I'm happy you're inspiring people. But what's much more interesting to me is your tactical advice. And your tactical advice, because it actually works, is inspiring to me. I watched Rocky once and I ate a raw egg, and all I got was a sore throat. I didn't get anything from it. I didn't get in shape. I'm not someone like most people that is going to watch an inspiring video and then become like, impacted. My life's going to change by it. But Gary teaching me how to navigate, the market now, and how to use social media as a massive tool. Doing that, seeing results, that was inspiration. So it took a longer time and it took actual work, not just consuming a video. But once I realized that he was right and that someone literally gave me, a game plan to success, quote unquote, I was like, holy shit, this thing works. So good for Gary. He's the man. I love him very much. That's the extent of my marketing study. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Ask T&H Live. Thank you so much for watching. We had a fun time doing this. If you do not follow us already, go ahead and follow us on Instagram at Theo and Harris, and subscribe to our YouTube channel because it is the coolest watch YouTube channel in the game. So that's it, and we'll see you guys on Monday.